everyone, and welcome to the Next Best Picture podcast. I am your host, Matt Neglia, the owner, editor-in-chief of nextbestpicture.com, and right now I'm being joined by Tommy Dewey to talk about his role in Saturday Night. Maybe we can also touch upon your monster a little bit here, Tommy, but hey, how are you, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me. I love talking
Absolutely.
about both of these movies, so I can't wait.
Yeah, well, I feel like, I've talked to a couple people about this year even. This feels like a significant turning point for you with these two films being released this year, I think. Um, I can't help but feel that the door is going to start knocking pretty soon. And I would hope that your career is about to take a really, really nice turn here. Do you kind of feel that
I would hope that
sense?
too. That sounds great. I like your plan. Um, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it feels like I'm getting to do more interesting work.
Yeah.
I'm getting to lose myself in character a little more, stuff that I've always wanted to do and maybe have had limited opportunities to do. And so I'm really proud of these movies. I'm grateful, especially in something like Saturday Night. I don't know that I'm everyone's obvious choice to play Mike O'Donoghue, but Jason, thought I synced up with his voice for whatever reason, and I'm biased, but I think it worked out pretty well. So, I mean, thank you for the kind words, but more movies like this, please. And if this is if these, if the if these last couple are opening those doors, then great. I'm in.
Well, when I saw Saturday Night, I know Rachel, I know Gabriel, I know a lot of people singled out Corey Michael Smith. I'm not saying it's because you're here. You can listen back to our podcast review of the movie to hear me say this on the record. I singled you out. I thought you were a huge standout in this film amongst a really, really talented ensemble. And I think a large reason for that is because, man, you just got that deadpan humor tone down so well. It really, really stood out to me as some of the funniest moments of Saturday Night. And that movie is just chock full of them.
Well, thank you. I'm blushing, but and I'm in such good company with that cast you mentioned. As I'm sure you've heard a ton, uh you're working with good people just raises your game, and there was not a weak link in this cast, I don't think. But yeah, man, I love that bone dry stuff. I'm such a fan of I'm such an Anglophile. I've always liked the just super dry British comedic actors. So I'm probably borrowing stuff from them, but yeah, and the writing was really good. Jason and
Yeah.
Gil just gave me great stuff to play with. I go back to that scene, my kind of big scene. I get some great stuff in this movie, but there's it's at least my longest scene is the one with the great Catherine Curtin, the network censor in the
Hmm.
writers' room, which is just the language is so chewy and great. And Jason's a fan of kind of playing small, playing under too. So his directorial style supports my comedic sensibilities.
So let's backtrack a little bit here. Do you come across the script first, or do you go in an audition without a script? How does this all come to be with at least just getting your name forward to Jason Reitman?
I go back a little ways with Jason. Jason was the one of the producers and in-house director for a show called Casual that I did on Hulu with Michaela Watkins. The show is
Hmm.
very near and dear to me. I guess we wrapped that. Geez, time flies, probably 5 years ago. But so I'm to a certain extent sort of in Jason's clubhouse. I then did a movie called The Front Runner that I that
Yep.
I'm that I wish more people had seen. Another movie I'm proud of. So Jason and I see each other a lot. He I think trusts me to a certain extent on a set, and we sort of speak the same language. And we had talked about this script, and I don't remember what it was like, but the understanding was I was always going to have to give a version of O'Donoghue. Like I said, I don't know that I was the obvious choice. So when
But he had you in mind though while he
he
was
had me
writing
in
it.
mind and he sent me the
Yeah.
material. And I I think my wife said, start growing your beard because I have a pathetic beard. But O'Donoghue was almost always bearded. And then I went to the drugstore and started tinkering with those wire rim glasses that were an O'Donoghue staple. And I tried to get close enough to a look, and then just did a work session with a taped work session with Jason, and we tried it a bunch of different ways, and something worked. I don't know what his process was after that. If he had to talk Sony into it, I really don't know. But I think we both felt in that room that it could work after that session.
Now, was there anybody else in that session along with you, or was it just you and Jason?
Just me and Jason and someone from John Papsadera's casting office taping it all. That's my recollection. I think there was just three of us in the room. I really like how Jason is really great at casting. I think this movie is evidence of that.
Yeah.
And he's really thorough. I mean, for an actor, you just want a a how do I put this? Like a full opportunity, right? You really want to be able to show off. And sometimes when you do have to read or audition for stuff, it's really quick, and someone's not a director, or producer, or casting person is not paying attention. But that is not Jason. You are not leaving that room until he gets, a lot of options, and really it really puts you through the work. And I he did that for me going way back on Casual. I'm not sure I was the obvious choice for that either, but he gave me a chance to show off, and it worked out.
Well, as I said earlier, hopefully with the release of these two films this year, you'll start to become people's obvious choice moving forward. I think it's pretty evident that you've got really exceptional talent. I personally have not seen Casual, but now I'm like tempted to check it out now at this point, I will
Oh,
say.
it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still on the internet. Thank you,
Going
man.
off of that, yeah, but going off of that though, so you get the role. Michael O'Donoghue is no longer with us, has been for quite some time. So,
Mhm.
what is your reference point for how you capture his essence, his personality? Like, what do you turn to for that?
Well, like we all do these days, I go to, YouTube University for a little while. There's not a lot out there
Mhm.
on Donahue. There's, a good 10 minutes on the entire internet. But so I just started listening to him and watching him on a loop, to get a sense of body language and voice and stuff like that. I mean, I'm playing a little bit of a different game than Corey and Matt and some of those people that were playing the icons in this movie. Whereas
Yeah,
a physical and vocal likeness was, I think, more important, frankly. Whereas people don't have as much of an awareness of Mike O'Donoghue, but I still wanted to get as close as possible and just really capture that subversive spirit. And you talk about dry delivery and stuff like that. I mean, man, O'Donoghue could slice you open with a throwaway line, just some little,
sure.
sub vocal something, and that comes across in the interviews and stuff. And there's a biography of Mike called Mr. Mike, and then one of the most important uh, pieces of research was talking to Mitch Glazer, who was O'Donoghue's longtime writing partner, wrote Scrooge with Mitch. Bill Murray happened to be at Mitch's house when I had that session and dipped into our meeting and shared some stories also. And what Mitch said to me was, I said, if there was a one headline, what would it be? And he said, just never forget that Mike was having fun. He enjoyed this. He wasn't. It wasn't as if he was looking to hurt people and take people down for the sake of doing that. He was always the smartest guy in the room and took great joy in winding people up. It's kind of how he got through the day. So it was that idea of joy and fun that I think was the key to unlocking it. He's a dark figure in the movie. He is a black hole that threatens to suck the whole show down with him. But if you play that too hard or too broadly, I don't think it works. I think you've got to see the twinkle in it. And
So if the ship is going down, he's the one maniacally laughing, basically.
that's exactly right. I mean, he was Bill Murray said something to me that it was also helpful, which was that um, Mike loved a big swing, and he was either going to, if he went into a pitch meeting, he was either going to leave a hero or be kicked out of the room. And I thought, yeah, that feels like something I can sort of sink my teeth onto one of the cornerstones of building this performance. So that was really helpful. And then you kind of do all that work, and then you gotta forget it and just show up and do the acting. And I'm probably getting ahead of us, but and I'll stop rambling in a sec. But that there was something about Jason's full recreation of Studio 8H that you could shoot any angle, move in and out of rooms. I mean, he completely rebuilt the thing in a soundstage in Atlanta. Um, Obviously set in the mid 70s. He had trained the background actors, got training in how to operate all that old equipment. So it was a fully immersive experience, and it was one set. You never left. So after an hour there every morning, you do kind of time travel, and to the extent you're able to give yourself over to that process, it's really good for acting,
Well,
in
when you
terms
have
of.
an immersive set like that where you can go anywhere and still be a part of this world that Jason has recreated, what are you doing most of the time when you're waiting for your time in front of the camera? Like, how are you passing the time between takes?
I was watching Jason and his team work. The way that squad operates is really impressive. It's Jason would start every day with a whiteboard, almost like a football coach, and like, here's how we're going to move around this space today. And he really empowers his camera team to find stuff. So uh, on one hand, you really can't relax when you're not on camera because you might be on camera. They're always finding and doing that Altman-y kind of zooming across the room and getting catching
Yeah.
reaction and stuff like that. But I did it wasn't one of those jobs where I was retreating to my trailer and taking a nap or binge watching something. I stuck around because I liked watching this process and seeing how it worked. And it's a big fun cast. It was like summer camp. It was just
Yeah.
fun people to be around. And I'm an actor nerd. I like show people. I like hanging out with them and cutting up and all that stuff. So it was a great gig in that respect.
Now, I'm just curious from watching Jason, working with him as closely as you have as well over the years, does that give you kind of a little bit of an itch to want to try directing yourself?
I'd love to direct. I mean, I think it's, waiting for the right thing that feels like, that I kind of have to, being like I feel like something that's personal and so tonally specific, but I'm itching to do it. The problem with watching someone who's so good at all of it, including the tech stuff, with Jason, you think, I mean, like I got a long way to go. But I would really like to. In any endeavor, I like to be as involved as they will let me. I just think the work in front of the camera only benefits from that. That Your Monster movie, which was my other release this month, I was a producer on and spent a lot of time in post. And that's the way, sometimes you're just a hired gun, but if given the choice, I like to be brought in early, read early drafts, all that stuff. So I
Totally.
yeah.
So when talking about the script for Saturday Night, which I think has like so many outrageously funny zingers and lines, is all of that pre-written, or do you guys get a little bit of wiggle room to play around on set and maybe ad-lib a little or improvise?
Good question. There's a little room for that, but not much. That script is really musical,
Mhm.
and really tight, and Jason and Gil write really good jokes. And
So I would rather butt fuck cancer than make these changes is something that was pre-written, is what you're telling me.
that wasn't me. That wasn't me, Mom. Correct. And also, I think. it's a little scarier to improvise in a period piece. I know it's only 1975, but I think that they did so much research on their end to make that all seamless that there wasn't a lot of it. I have heard Jason, we were doing an interview way back in the day for Casual, and we were doing a panel somewhere, and someone said, "Do you like actors to improvise?" Uh, uh, and he said something to the extent of, well, they can improvise with their faces as much as they want. Uh, so I haven't forgotten that, Jason. So not a ton of it on this, but there were days where we needed a little piece of dialogue or something to cover something. So it wasn't terribly strict in that way, but this script was so tight. Not a ton of it on this gig.
Yeah. What was the most fun day on set for you?
There were a couple days where John Batiste was there, and was it was just a jam session, and he
Yeah.
would play between setups. He's so talented. Speaking of improvisational, and he had this great band, and I don't know music very well. I'll speak about it poorly, but the bottom line was they would just, on a turnaround, crank up the band and play. And we were all just kind of hanging out and watching it, drinking our coffee. Um, I just remember that day being full of joy, and that kind of pinched me like they're paying me for this. This is one of our great musicians who I get to, share a room with for 12 hours, and he's gonna play music when we're on a break. I can think of that. I just love shooting that scene with Kathy. That day was great. J.K. Simmons sat in and watched from Video Village. I've gotten to know J.K. a little bit. I got to meet Tracy Letts.
Yeah.
Probably he was sitting right behind me. That was another really, really special day. Nerve-wracking when, an Oscar winner and a Pulitzer winner, show up on set 5 minutes before your coverage. But awesome.
Well, a lot of your scenes are also shared with little mini Steven Spielberg himself, Gabriel LaBelle, who I love Gabriel. He's a great guy, and I'm really happy to see his career continuing to blossom as well. Very, very few film credits. I'm just curious to know, like, in terms of your dynamic, did you guys like swap like any kind of did you provide him with like any pieces of advice or anything like that, or was he just always was he just game? Was he always on? I'm just curious at this stage in his career, like where he's at.
I mean, yeah, like, well, it's a short list because apparently he can only play icons. The bar is set so high for Gabe now. I don't know. I don't know
Right?
if he does that. He is the most lovely guy. In fact, I had my wife and kid visiting, and he had a bigger apartment, and he was, as you know, really busy. Would go home every day and have to drill lines because
Hmm.
he's what takes you through the whole movie. And he heard that, and I only had this one bedroom, and he said, "You should take my apartment." And that night, he traded apartments with me. We moved each other's stuff in and out, and vice versa. So that's the kind of guy he is. I'm not one to give it, offer unsolicited advice, and he is such a
Sure.
cinephile. He's seen everything, and what's really impressive for
Mm.
someone young, and I hope this doesn't sound patronizing, but someone with young and not many credits, like you usually see the work, you usually see him pushing a little bit, and
Hmm.
you just don't with Gabe. He's just got it. He's just in it, and there's especially with something like this when you're playing a known figure with talk about a known voice. Everybody in the world has a Lorne Michaels impression, but
Yep.
to be able to underplay all that and find the nuance in that was really impressive. And you know him. He's got this great, maybe this is the energy of youth, but he is I didn't see him tire or complain or anything. So I don't even remember what your question was, but I I,
Oh
I
no,
do
no, yeah.
I do like it was like talking shop with a much older, more experienced actor, put it that way. It was like
Sure.
and
We're not
and
here to talk about shit about Gabriel LaBelle. We're here to understand the depth of his incredible talent, if anything, because I am super impressed by him. Like I said, with so few credits, that he carries himself with such professionalism and really with like a seasoned mentality of someone that's been doing this way longer than he has. Like you said, to shoulder a project like this or like Fableman's, on him at this stage in his career is mightily impressive. So, yeah. And then kind of piggybacking off of that here, you have your monster that also just came out. Finally, my God, I saw this movie like back at Sundance, and I was like wondering if it was
Right.
ever going to find its way out into the world. And for smaller films like this, independent films, like the marketplace is so tough now. To
Yeah.
forget about even releasing, just even getting it off the ground and getting it made is in and of itself this Herculean feat, I feel like. Um, when it comes to balancing, smaller projects like that, you mentioned before you were a producer
Yeah.
on your monster. So having a hands-on approach to something like that and ushering that into the world, can you just like take me through a little bit, like just what is the current state like right now within the industry for independent films and getting them off the ground? Because from the outside looking in, it feels like it's becoming more and more constricted.
I know, and some of that's above my pay grade, but for this thing, I think, I mean, it made me so grateful for the what I think is still, and actually, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. I do
Mhm.
feel like the festival world is still very robust. That there's still
It is.
those festivals still have this great, very real energy around them, and
Yes.
this I this the second I fly home from Sundance, I get cynical again. But man, while I'm there, it still has that magic to it. Um, I Here's my maybe Pollyanna optimistic take on it, but because of that energy and because people are still finding ways to cobble money together and make these inspiring movies, and I think there were a lot of good ones this year. I'm proud that Your Monster is of what we were able to do with it, and I think it is one of those good movies. I Is that as things contract, and I don't know, but as more commercial studio kind of stuff becomes more rule bound, I think maybe it opens up a little vacuum space for indie films. This I can't take too much credit for it. Caroline Lindy, who wrote and directed it, and Kayla Foster, her lead producer on it, really just never took their foot off the gas. This was a short film, and how many gazillions of short films have people made being like, and I've got a feature version too, and
Yeah.
this actually happened. It was developed as a TV show. It had many different forms as a feature, and then finally 4 years after we made the short, 3, 4 years after we made the short, we found money to go make the feature-length version of it. And then the did not expect Sundance at all. That was huge, especially that placement in the midnight section, which kind of turned people onto it. And then the sale out of there. So it all feels like, on one side, maybe I'm being, a little too pie in the sky about indie films. On the other hand, um, this did feel like a miracle that it made it this far.
Hmm.
And I think I I don't know any other way to say it that it's like you've got to have a creator, director, writer type, and then one or two producers that just will not let it go. To get these things out into the world, it's really just a personal energy driven thing
Yeah.
that you hear no 99 times and the hundreds times that is the one that gets you into the end zone. I'm rambling now, but yes, it is hard. But then you kind of get out there in that indie community, and it kind of feels the same as it did 20 years ago. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know that us stubborn artists really ever go anywhere. Just kind of try to keep doing it. I wish it'd be nice if I do think maybe those giant paydays out of Sundance, of South by, whenever. I don't know if and when we see those again, especially at scale. There was the bit. What was the what's inside this year was like
Yeah.
the big
Hmm.
a big money thing, but that was it. That was really it. And it was
Yeah, there
another
wasn't that much this year for sure.
right. So
But
just in terms of paying the bills, it'd be nice if those days came back. But um, anyway, that's my 10-minute answer to your short question.
I'm sure you've been asked this before, but I don't know the answer. How many hours in the makeup chair?
4.5, and an hour at night. But it was this guy, Dave Anderson, who's got a couple Oscars. I wouldn't dare get into his resume now. It's too long, but he has this really, and I've said this a bunch, but he had this really zen, just this really kind of calming quality that I did not mind it. And I'd either listen to a book on tape or learn lines or chat with Dave. So I went in thinking, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare. And it really wasn't so bad. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, I'd never gotten to do that before. So this
Yeah.
is, I was kind of a kid in a candy store. It's like it's the stuff like it's going back to being 5 years old and wanting to, play dress up and put on a play for your parents.
Yeah.
It was it was that exhilarating, really working on it. So.
Yeah. Favorite line that your character gets to say in Saturday Night?
That's a great, great question. There's so many good ones.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
um, and again, credit to Jason and Gil. There is I love the speech. There's a little speech where he kind of points out the censor's hypocrisy in the middle of the movie. Um, and it's just a simple line. It's not a joke line, but it's such a great header for that speech. He goes, um, I've got an idea for a sketch. I'm not sure if it's funny. You can be the judge. And that's just Michael O'Donoghue. And I know that's maybe
Hmm.
an unexpected answer to your question, but he is just turning her bullshit back on her.
Yep.
And in certain full theater festival viewings of it, you can kind of hear everybody catch their breath being like, oh, the shit's about to go down.
Yep.
Like
Oh,
he
yeah.
just teed her up for a takedown just with that little header line. But then some of the stuff is not jokey at all. He's at the end of the first scene that he has with her in the control room. I forget what she says. I think she says, "I know what blue balls are," and he just goes, "You don't say."
Yeah.
You know, I end up really loving the smaller throwaway stuff as opposed to the perfectly crafted joke lines.
Yeah, like Big Bird died from autoerotic asphyxiation, and you're just like, who knew?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who knew? Yeah. Oh, and then after I don't need to reperform the whole movie for you, but then there's a line, and what does he say? Jim Henson says some goofy nerdy thing, and O'Donoghue goes, "Uh-oh, cursing." Um, I mean, it was a delight. It was just a delight to play that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we come to the end here, Tommy, I really appreciate the time. But I want to ask something that I ask a lot of our guests on the show here. What's next? What's in the future for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish I knew. I'm writing a bunch. I've always moonlit as a writer. So I'm working on putting some stuff together for myself that will hopefully hit the marketplace in the new year. But I'm just reading stuff right now. Very busy fall, for which I'm very grateful. These two movies. Um, and it's that trick of like trying to be patient and picky, but like I also really like to work, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm doing a friend's. I don't think I'm at liberty to say what it is, but I'm doing a friend's short film next week, just because I it's good, A, but B, I can't help myself. I collect rust if I'm not working. So
Yeah. Well, as I said at the top of our conversation here, being such a standout and such a large ensemble cast this Saturday night, suffering 4 hours in the makeup chair for your monster and proving yourself as a charming romantic lead. I mean, let's face it, you've always been charming, but I'm really, really hopeful that the double whammy of these two releases so close to each other opens up even more doors for you, Tommy. And hopefully we can do this again soon in the future.
I so appreciate that, Matt. I appreciate you having me on. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and
Oh,
just
dude, thank you.
yeah, it's great. So keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for having me. I look forward to coming back sometime.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, see you, bud.